of plant-based nutrition movement. Uh-oh. I think I might have started too soon. Okay, so I'll back up. My name is Meryl Fury, and I am president and CEO of Plant-Based Nutrition Movement. So happy to be here for this evening's session. Today, all day, we've been talking about food as medicine, and that's why I'm wearing my leafy greens shirt, spinach all around. Plants are medicine, and not all food is good for us. We know that. So we are in the middle of, this is the end of day 2 of a 4-day stretch where we are talking about food and how it impacts children's health, the overall nutrition, the environment, education, how to make it stick, and all of it serves as, any one of the sessions can be in any category there that I just listed, because all of it is important to the health of our children, and all of it is education. All of it works to save the planet, and all of it is about how to make sure that we make transitions that benefit our children and help the lifestyle stick. This evening we are speaking with Lee Crosby. I'll give a little bit of an introduction to her. She is a registered dietitian specializing in plant-based nutrition. She's also the author of the food and nutrition blog, VeggieQuest.com. Lee holds a bachelor's degree in biology from the University of Virginia. She's done her graduate coursework in nutrition at the University of North Carolina, Gillings School of Public Health, and nutrition coursework at the University of Maryland, College Park. She completed her dietetic internship with Virginia Tech in the Washington, D.C. area. She's committed to staying current in the field of nutrition, and she actively engages in research, professional networking, and conferences to provide her audience with the latest information on how food can enhance health and well-being. With that, I will invite Ms. Lee Crosby onto the stage. Yay, thank you so much. Love your kitchen.
Hello, thank you, Meryl. Yes, welcome to my house. It's always this clean, by the way, always.
I'm sure it is. As is mine.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
We live like this.
We do, right? In-house beautiful. That's what I call that. I live in-house beautiful.
Of course.
Yes. So where are you in the country?
So we are in Cabin John, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. Because no one's heard of Cabin John, but I think pretty much everyone's heard of D.C.
Yes, thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So what are you going to create for us in our audience this evening?
Okay, so we are going to make 3 kid-friendly dishes. We're going to do one for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner. They're all healthy. They're all kid-friendly, kid-focused, and your kids can help out with these too. So, and of course, they're all nutritious.
Yay! This is so exciting. This is wonderful. Okay, I feel like I should get out of the way and let you get started. And if there's anything I can do to help, you need an extra pair of hands from Wisconsin.
Yeah, no problem. I got it. We got this. We got this.
Happy to do it. All right.
All right. Thanks, Meryl.
See you in a bit.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Again, like Meryl said, I'm Lee Crosby. I am a plant-based nutrition specialist. Now, I am actually not a pediatric RD, and I do not have kids. So why are you here? Well, 2 things. 1, totally passionate about plant-based nutrition. I have a passel of nieces and nephews, so I have a very good idea about what kids like and maybe what they're not quite so into. And just really quick before I start, when I'm discussing nutrition needs, I'm talking about the needs of school-aged kids, right? Not the really wee littles. If you have some littles, I love a website called plantbasedjuniors.com. It's run by 2 plant-based and plant-predominant dietitians, has great information, recipes, and actually a course for parents if you are interested in really understanding nutrition needs on a plant-based diet. I love that resource. And then, of course, nothing I'm saying here is medical advice. Caveat, always talk to your child's pediatrician or dietitian, but we're going to still learn some really cool nutrition information and make some dishes that your kids and the rest of your family are absolutely going to love. So up first, we are going to cover veggies. Oh, and before we say, one other thing I wanted to say, if you have a plant-based child or a vegan child, wherever you are in that sort of spectrum, if they haven't talked to or you as a parent haven't talked to a dietitian with some specialties in vegetarian nutrition and pediatric nutrition, I do recommend that everyone just takes a single session with a dietitian to make sure that they go over their kiddo's diet and make sure your child's getting everything they need from someone who knows what's what. So that out of the way, let's jump into getting your kids what they need. And we're going to start with breakfast, and we're going to start with vegetables, which are two things you wouldn't normally think of together, but anyone who's been around me for any length of time knows that I dig vegetables at breakfast, but I like them in ways that are yummy. And I think one of the easiest ways to get kids to like vegetables is to put them in a green smoothie. That doesn't mean that child's not out there, but I've yet to meet a child who doesn't like the right green smoothie. Now, part of this is marketing, right? So we are going to make not a green smoothie, we're going to make a green monster smoothie, but whatever cartoon character or video game character your kid is into that's green, let your kid name the smoothie. That's going to help them have ownership over it and actually want to eat it. And kids struggle to eat vegetables, and it turns out there's actually a reason for that. So your kid is not just being, well, they might just be being dramatic, but kids are more sensitive to bitter flavors than adults are. Now, that's a good thing because over evolutionary time, it helped them not get poisoned by eating poisonous plants. So we want that. But it also means it's a little more challenging to nudge them into eating vegetables. And so there are some ways to, first off, start with less bitter vegetables. So Meryl had her spinach shirt on. I love it. Spinach, big fan. But one way to cut the bitterness of any vegetable, there, just from a food science perspective, you can use salt, you can use sugar, and you can use acid. And when you are making a green smoothie, the fruits actually provide a healthy source of whole food sugar and some acid to help bring any bitterness in the vegetable component down. So there's some science behind why green smoothies are actually really appreciated by kids. So let's jump into this particular dark green leafy smoothie, our green monster smoothie. So I want to talk about the ingredients just a little bit first. So first up, you're going to use 1 cup of a plant-based milk. What I've got here is soy milk. And I do want to say, you may have heard a little bit about this already, but there's a controversy. Do kids need dairy? And my answer to you is no. There are actually some issues with dairy, right? For one thing, lactose intolerance. A lot of kids are lactose intolerant, gas, bloating, diarrhea. These are not things that you want your kids' food to do to them. High in saturated fat. Whole milk has 5 grams of saturated fat in a cup. 2% milk has 3 grams of saturated fat in a cup. This is not the heart health start we really want for our kids. And interestingly, if you have a teen, there's a 41%, one study found a 41% increased risk of acne with just a cup of milk per day. So your teenager might want to be a little around that too. And there are actual hormones, mammal hormones in milk. Cows are now milked late into their pregnancy. So our milk today, our industrially produced milk, actually has more estrogen than the milk of yesteryear. So that's a whole lot of sort of question marks when it comes to milk. But kids do need some of the nutrients that are found in milk. The nice thing is they don't have to come from milk, right? So the easiest way to get those nutrients is to get a fortified soy milk, right? You want to make sure it's fortified with calcium and vitamin D. They also have ones now that are made with pea protein, the Ripple for Kids. That's another nice one. If your kids are getting protein elsewhere in their diet, I imagine they are, and B12, vitamin B12, which you need on a plant-based diet, they're hopefully getting that from a supplement. You should talk to your doctor about the right level of supplementation for them. You can branch out to other plant milks too, right? They don't have to be soy or Ripple. You can do anything. Just check and make sure that they are fortified. Just look at the label that they are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Okay, so let's get into the smoothie a little bit. We have our soy milk here for that. And then we have a banana, that's for sweetness and creaminess. And again, this is sort of a formula. This is a tropical type smoothie, but this formula, you can use any sort of flavoring fruit, right? We're using pineapple for tropical vibes, but you could use any kind of berry that you like. For the creamy fruit, you can use a banana. You can also use a pear or mango, anything just to give it creaminess. And then whatever leafy green you have in your fridge. We're going to talk about that a little bit because leafy greens really are a superfood. And then whatever healthy fat you have, I'm using hemp hearts because they are a nutrition powerhouse, but you could use something like avocado or nut butter, and that's going to help you absorb some good things from your dark leafy green. So allow me just to go on a little bit more about dark leafy greens because they are the most important veggie. I heart dark leafy greens. Again, something, if you have followed me at all, you all know they are near and dear to my heart. Why? They are nutrient dense, potassium, magnesium, vitamin K, anti-inflammatory compounds. Some are high in calcium. Unfortunately, spinach, it technically is high in calcium, but it's not easily absorbed from spinach. It is from other dark leafy greens like kale and collard greens. So We're going to get some calcium from the plant-based milk that's in here, so that's not an issue. What I really want to talk about are two unsung nutrients that are in dark leafy greens in abundance, and they are called lutein and zeaxanthin. And you're like, what? Huh? Yeah, they're kind of hard to spell, but they are really important. So they actually are found in your retinas, in your eyes, and in your brain. And unsurprisingly, they're really important for eye health and brain health. In terms of eye health, they can help protect your eyes and your kids' eyes from UV damage and help with visual processing. There's even some evidence they might help with eye strain. So if you're on your phone, and hopefully your kids are not on screens that much, but yeah, either way, they're reading a lot for sure. So you want to help prevent eye strain there. Also, really, if you've heard of the eye disease, macular degeneration, it's actually a condition of aging. So this is more for the parents out there, but the more lutein and zeaxanthin that is consumed and builds up in the eyes, the less the risk for macular degeneration. Okay, but let's go into the brain health because that's important. It turns out that more lutein and zeaxanthin in the eyes, again, coming from things like dark leafy greens, there are actually improvements in kids in their performance in both verbal and math realms. So again, if you want your kids doing great in school, it might be good to go ahead and make sure they're getting their dark leafy greens every day. And even some evidence that it can help the lutein and zeaxanthin with executive function. Now that's like goal planning and problem solving and self-control. Now, I don't think that leafy greens are going to make your 3-year-old into like a self-possessed 40-year-old, but it might give them a little bit more ability to control those big emotions. So, all right, so the leafy greens, really important. And then the hemp hearts, like I said, we're going to include some sort of healthy fat in the smoothie to help you absorb those fat-soluble lutein and zeaxanthin pigments. And they are pigments, by the way. They help give the vibrant color to dark leafy greens. All right, now making the smoothie is actually super simple and quick, which is why we had so much time to talk nutrition fun about ingredients. So I'm using a high-powered blender here, which is a Vitamix, which is a big investment. So if you can't afford that, or if that's not in your budget at this exact moment, that is totally fine. I'm going to give you some tricks for making this without a fancy blender. But if you do, they have plastic carafes. They also make stainless steel carafes, which you can buy separately. Since I kind of try to reduce plastic exposure, this was a nice tip. Okay, so when you have a high power blender, you can put this in whatever order you want. We're going to add the soy milk. And just go to hemp hearts next. You can do this wherever you want. And again, that's 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts, a cup of soy milk. We've got a cup of frozen pineapple. That makes it nice and chilly and a little bit thicker, which is lovely. We've got our banana, again, for the sort of creaminess. I should try that opening the banana from the other end trick. It's on the to-do list. All right, in goes the banana. Goodbye to the peel. And then the most important of the ingredients are the dark leafy greens. Now I've used 2 cups of packed spinach. If your kids will tolerate it, you can put more in there. If they are not initiated into this at all, or they're super tasters and can taste anything, you can start with a little bit less. So now you might want to turn your volume down just a little smidgen because this is going to get just a little bit loud, but it's really quick because blender. So hold. All right, turn it down a little bit. Here we go. And voila. Now, you saw me just dump everything in there and push the button. And if you have a high-speed blender like this or a Ninja or something similar, that's great. If you don't, here's your pro tip. You're going to put all the ingredients except the dark leafy greens. They will go in the blender first if you have a regular blender, and you'll blend them all up until you have a lovely fruit smoothie. And then you'll take half your greens, turn your blender off, add half your greens, smush them down in with a spoon. And again, make sure the blender is off. I know from experience it doesn't go well if the blender is on when you try to mash the stuff in there. I did not used to have a fancy blender. Put the lid back on, blend until those greens are blended in, and then repeat with the second batch. Smush them in and blend them, and then you can have the exact same thing that you would have with a high power blender, but with a standard blender. Now, you can have this as a side dish. Honestly, I have 0 problems with this being a side dish for kiddos because you know what? If they're getting vegetables, I don't really care if there's some fruit blended in there. Excellent. If they are having it for breakfast, I like to make it a little bit more, you know, a little something in there. So this is going to make about 2 kiddo-sized smoothies, one sort of teenage-sized smoothie. All right, so we have this beautiful bowl here, and if it's going to be breakfast, I'm going to sort of sass it up with a little bit of extra. You could do some chopped nuts, anything like that. I've got a nice granola here to go on top. Anything you might find at like an acai bowl shop, you can put on here. Since we've got a little tropical flavor, we're going to do a little bit of shredded coconut on top, and you end up with this beautiful smoothie bowl. And actually, if you can serve it with a spoon, you know, there's a decent amount of fruit with the fruit sugar in it. And we blended it, but if you're eating with a spoon, it slows down the intake so you get a nice slow rise and fall in your blood sugar. So I don't know if we can see this without spilling it, but we have a lovely smoothie bowl. Excellent. And then the rest, just so we can see how much it makes, is going to go in this nice little pint jar here. And you can have that in a cup with a lid and take that in the car if you're in a hurry on the way to school. So that is our breakfast item / side dish if you have kids that are more into this than other ways of eating greens. So now my lovely husband, showrunner, sous chef, Jeff, is going to help me get ready for our next recipe. Does anyone else have any pro tips or questions or anything about getting kids eating vegetables? Anything that I've gone over, just give a yell in the comments. I want to make sure you're covered. He's so handy. Everybody should get one of these around. This is so convenient. Hi, Meryl. I cannot hear you.
No comments so far.
Okay.
I do have well, you brought up using hemp seeds.
Yes.
Oh, wait, there is a question.
Oh.
Someone wants to know, would you recommend protein powder? And if so, do you have a brand that you like?
Most of the time, I don't think your kids are going to need a protein powder. If they are athletic, if they are not consistently eating a wide variety of plant-based foods and you're concerned that they might not be getting enough protein, again, if they're eating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and eating a wide variety, they're likely getting what they need. But if you're concerned, I don't think there's any harm in putting in a scoop of a plant-based protein powder. It's a little tricky. I would go if you have the consumerlab.org, I think is the address. They will actually rate some of the protein powders because some of them, there's been some questions about heavy metal contamination. So I want to make sure you're getting a nice clean one. And it's better if you can get one without the calorie-free sweeteners just for kids, because the smoothie is already really sweet. You are not going to want to add any sugar to that. I think it's Sprout Living that also has some more like really whole food type plant-based protein powders. They have a sunflower version and a pumpkin seed version that are just, sorry, my dog, our dogs are also my sous chefs, and one of them has decided that they would like in on this action. They are literally just defatted pumpkin seeds and defatted sunflower seeds. So those are actually a nice way to get in some more really good seed nutrition with just a little bit more protein and less fat. But yeah, I think that's an okay thing if you want. I would just, again, check consumerlab.org is a good resource, but you can also, Consumer Reports might have something on this as well in terms of just making sure that it's a nice, clean, plant-based protein powder that you're using. So I hope that answers that question. You feel good?
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I could also suggest there's an app called Yuka, Yuka, that you can, it's a free app, and there's the paid version too, but the free app is readily available, and you can get it on your, Play Store or your app store for your mobile device. You scan the barcode, and it's pretty good about telling you where on a range, I think of 1 to 100, where different products fall for cleanliness.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's a great.
And it's called Yuka.
Yuka, or Yucca, but I think Yuka sounds better. Yuka.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that's a great resource.
The little, what do you call it? I want to say emoji. That's not the word. Icon.
There you go.
Whatever you call that thing. It was a little orange carrot. So you look for it. Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Well, we're going to try that. I'm like giving, making eyes to my husband, Jeff. Yuka, please take a note. All right. There we go. Excellent. Okay. So this is our next recipe coming up here. And excuse me, I am coming off of a cold. So pardon, I am trying to rally for this, but if I'm a little sniffly, apologies in advance. Okay.
One
Next
thing,
up,
Lee,
yeah,
just so people know, this is the Green Monster smoothie.
yes,
Uh,
that's the recipe.
yep, take pictures of it if you like. So this is the top half. Leland can scroll down to the bottom half, and people can take pictures of that.
Okay, excellent. All right,
Okay.
all good. All right, let me know when we're ready to go on to the next one. I'll take that as a right now is good. Okay, so next recipe, I forgot to switch my own recipe over. Um, Tofu nuggets with a cashew ranch dipping sauce. All right, so first off, find me a kid who doesn't like nuggets, right? I feel like every kid I've ever met likes nuggets. Now, this can be like a double-edged sword here because if they already have a nugget that they love and it's one of those deep fried, all kinds of crazy fillers in there, that could be competing with their ability to enjoy other nuggets. But these nuggets are pretty darn good for being pretty darn healthy. So I think we're going to be able to give those other lesser nuggets a run for their money. This is actually a recipe from the last one was one of mine. This one is from the Nutrition Lady blog. And it's just a nice way to work in plant-powered protein, right? So you don't need to worry about a protein powder in your smoothie if you're getting, like a tofu-based product in another meal, unless your kid has particular needs. So first thing I want to talk about though is we talk about tofu and we talk about soy, and I can already hear some people's questions because it's very common about like, hey, I heard soy can have some issues. Is soy safe for my kids? And the answer is it is not only safe, it is beneficial for your kids. It's safe for boys, it's safe for girls. There are all kinds of health benefits that come with soy. So let's just really quick talk about why you actually want to include soy in your child's diet. Plant-based, even not plant-based. I want everybody to include some soy in their child's diet. So first off, obviously, tofu, pretty rich in protein, soybeans generally. Also rich in choline, which is a brain health nutrient that can be a little harder to find on a plant-based diet. It's totally doable to get those choline needs met, but a great way to do that is soy milk and tofu. So if we want to look at actual numbers, kids' needs range depending on age and sex from I think it's 200, let me double check, 250 to 550 milligrams per day. And when you're getting a cup of soy milk, you're getting a little over 50 milligrams of choline. And if you are having a half cup of tofu, I believe the number is 35 milligrams of choline. So that's a nice little reason to include soy in the diet. We do know that soy helps lower cholesterol. There are a couple reasons for that. One reason is by displacing animal products, which are high in saturated fat, but also helps lower cholesterol in another way, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then there are some benefits in terms of reduction in cancer risk for their life in the future as adults. One study found that girls who eat soy more frequently during childhood have about a 60% lower risk of breast cancer later in life when they're adults than relative to girls who are eating soy less frequently, like once a week or less, I believe is the number. Don't quote me on that last one, but soy less frequently had a higher risk of breast cancer later in life. So there's some benefits there. And we know that in adults, in terms of prostate cancer, just so the boys and men have something too, and overall total cancer risk is lower in people who are consuming soy regularly. So great reason to be consuming soy. Again, just because there's a lot of questions. People worry about GMOs and glyphosate. Easiest is just to find organic soy products when you can. And honestly, most places have organic soy products available because consumers have insisted on it. So we're going to be making soy tofu nuggets, but actually, and here, plot twist, I'm actually making these nuggets with a fava bean tofu. And you're like, what? So they are now making tofus with all kinds of different proteins using different sources. So there is fava bean tofu. The company that makes that is called Big Mountain Foods. There is a pumpkin seed tofu called Pumfu. There's a chickpea tofu that's a little lower in protein than the other tofus, but I really like to see people vary their protein sources. And I think that's a good rule for kids too. So on a plant-based diet. So I think it's great if you want to try, if you have access to one of those more like exotic tofus, that you might just give it a shot and see if you like it and see if your kids have a preference. So actually, again, today we're going to be using the fava bean tofu. And then one more thing before we jump into the recipe. This is almost my last soapbox. There's one more coming up. This is a PSA about iodized salt. Please, when you cook at home, you don't need to go crazy with salt, but when you use salt, use iodized. Iodized This is the salt your grandma used, and I'm going to strongly encourage you to use it too. Why do I say this? Well, plant-based diets can be a little harder to get enough iodine. Why is that? First off, we need iodine for thyroid health. It's actually important for girls when they are reaching puberty, for breast development. But why is it a little bit lower in a plant-based diet? First, dairy, right? We take out dairy, that is fine because dairy's got all kinds of issues with it, but it does provide a source of iodine in the diet. Why is that? It does not just magically occur in dairy. They add iodine to cattle's feed, and also, in a sort of gross turn, they use an iodine-based disinfectant when they clean the cow's udders before they milk them, because god-awful stuff gets on those udders. So they use an iodine-based disinfectant, and traces of that get in the milk, which raises the iodine content of the milk, but also ew. So that's a reason. Another reason that basically everyone's diets are a little lower these days in iodine is that people are eating more processed foods and fast food and restaurant food, and that tends to all be made with non-iodized salt. Okay, that's not great. And then the third part is when people are cooking at home, they use fancy salts, right? You've got your pink Himalayan and your Celtic sea salt. And I don't even know, I feel like every month there's some new fancy salt, and they look cool. And if you want to use them to finish off a recipe, that's fine. But please, for your basic cooking, the salt your grandma used to use, right? Plain old iodized salt to make sure you are getting, helping meet those iodine needs. You can also get iodine in things like sea vegetables, like nori snacks or dulse sprinkles, but a great way to make sure you're getting at least, or if your child takes a multivitamin, most of those have iodine, but just a nice way to, like a little insurance policy, is to use iodized salt at home when you're cooking. And again, I don't want you using tons of salt because extra salt is not great for you either, but when you use it, use iodized. Okay, that is done. All right, let's make some nuggies. All right, this recipe, super good. They come out really crispy and yummy and pretty simple to make, and you can bring your kids in on this. So I'm a big fan of this recipe. All right, except for the knife part. The knife part, that's a you part, unless you have a teenager who can handle that. Okay, so let me get us ready here. The first thing that you need to do, make sure I have the recipe where I can see it. Okay, first thing you need to do is turn on the oven and preheat it, because I've forgotten this and that is not fun. You want to preheat to 400 degrees, so 400 degrees preheating on the oven. And then you want to slice up your tofu into half-inch-ish thick slices. For me, this is actually the fava bean tofu is sort of a super firm, and it comes in a thicker chunk. So for me, that gives me 4 slices. You can sort of do it how you like. 4 slices works for me. All right, so 4, maybe not quite half an inch thick. All right, nobody's gonna. So we're gonna put that out on a paper towel and sort of let it pat a little bit. And this is where, I actually put enough paper towels on here to do this. This is where your kids come in, because the rest of this is just a matter of ripping this up into pieces, right? And you could cut it again, but it doesn't look very nuggety, honestly, when you do it that way. So I like to rip it into about 6 pieces per. Oh, and we need the last piece of this puzzle, which is a baking sheet covered in parchment paper to help keep things from sticking without tons of extra oil. Although we are going to use a little oil in this recipe, but not a ton. All right. So we want to have that ready. So you're just going to break this up into pieces. And again, this is where your kids can do this. If you don't mind having some creatively shaped nuggets, it's still going to taste great. And it just gets them involved, and they're going to get their hands dirty, and it's going to be amazing. And of course, have them wash their hands before they join this party. But even if they don't do the best job, this is going to go in a 400-degree oven. So you're okay. All right. And then we have all of our lovely little nuggets ready to go. And in a perfect world, you would pat them a little bit more dry, but I forgot to get an extra set of paper towels. Aha, but wait, here they are. All right, so just give them a little pat. The other nice thing about this recipe, a lot of tofu recipes, you have to press it and all that stuff. No matter what kind of tofu you're using, you just need to give it a little pat dry. You don't need to do any pressing, complicated things that make people not want to cook tofu. This is very simple. Okay, so now the next thing, we're going to make a batter, and we're going to make a dredge, because these are going to be some nice, crispy, yummy nuggets. So they're going to have a little bit of breading on here. Okay, so first For the batter, we have a 1/4 cup of plant milk. Make sure this is unsweetened and plain or it's not going to taste quite right. All right, so your 1/4 cup of plant milk goes in, and then a 1/4 cup of flour. All right, now if I were baking like a quick bread or something, I would not scoop in. I would pour into the baking cup and I would level it off, but this is more cooking than baking, even though I know it's going in the oven, but we're not following like a chemistry lab type recipe here. So in goes a 1/4 cup of the flour. And then you need a little bit of salt and pepper. So you can kind of eyeball this. And again, of course, iodized salt. And I'm going to use a decent amount. Again, this one you can just eyeball, but I would use a little more than you think you might, because whereas a normal nugget has salt inside the filling, this is plain tofu in here. So the filling, the salt flavor is going to come on the outside, which is actually good because you get away with less salt and more flavor because it's going to hit your taste buds all at once as the coating instead of mixed into the filling. But you want to make sure that it's in the coating so you get that little salty yum that it's one of the reasons that kids like nuggets. All right. And again, this is something if you have a kid who can be trusted not to whisk it all over the kitchen, depends on how old they are. They can go ahead and be doing that as well. And again, the measurements on this don't have to be perfect, so they can also be measuring things too. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is make the dredge or the breading part. And the trick to making this crispy, there are a couple of tricks here, and extra yummy. First off, nutritional yeast, which I think y'all may have heard of, but it's basically just, it's not baking yeast. It's buy it separately. It's more of a flavoring. It adds umami flavor, some extra B vitamins. You can buy it fortified or unfortified. Both are fine. So we've got a 1/4 cup of our nutritional yeast. And this is the trick for the crispy nuggies, and that is panko breadcrumbs. So they are a big thick crumb, and they are going to make this super crunchy and tasty. And yeah, this is by far the best nugget recipe I've done. Oops, didn't get quite a 1/4 cup, and now we don't want to short that. Okay, and then we are going to use 2 tablespoons of flour. Again, we want to be super careful with this. 1 and 2. And then the recipe that you all have calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika. I'm not a huge smoked paprika fan in this application, although if you like it, God bless you, go for it. I'm using some garlic powder here. And then we are going to use 1/2 teaspoon of iodized salt. The iodized salt people do not pay me, I promise. So in goes a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And again, not very much of this is actually going to end up on the nuggets, so don't be like, oh, that's a lot of salt. It's not. And then again, with a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, we're just going to eyeball this because, you know, extra measuring spoons, that's a lot. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to whisk that up to get it nice and even. And again, this makes a surprisingly crispy nugget that's pretty low fat. I've never tried these in an air fryer, but I understand that these can be done in an air fryer. It's just for us, air fryers don't have the capacity that we need. Like, we don't have kids, but we eat a lot. We eat a lot of food, and it's just not quite enough. And wow, that's Clara. She's the housekeeping crew. She cleans up anything that we drop in the kitchen. Very, very handy. She's smelling food and she's interested in what's going on here. Can't blame her. Okay. All right. So let's get this in order because everything's going to go in the liquid batter first, which again, just so you can see what the consistency on this is looking like. It's a pretty thick batter because it's going to need to be something that we use to get the breading to stick. You guys can hear my dog Claire has also decided now is the time to take a nice deep drink of water. Kids and dogs, what can you do? Okay, so this is actually a step that you might want to do for yourself unless you have older kids or teens. Before I do this, because it actually, things get really dirty and we don't have time for a super full hand wash right now, is that I'm going to put on some food service gloves. Yeah, they're hot pink because I did colorful stuff. Again, if I were just gonna do this regular times where it'd be fine to get my hands dirty, that'd be okay, but we gotta keep things moving. We're busy people. So You put on your shocking pink food service gloves. Just kidding. You don't need to glove at all. And again, if your kids want to help with this, they can. This step, it'll be a little tricky, but the breading step, they definitely can. So again, it's only tricky because we're trying to get all of these pieces covered in batter without breaking the pieces into little, nothings. So, is that my sous chef helping again? Wow, she's very handy. The kitchen cleanup crew is on the case. Okay, so we've got everything covered in the batter. Again, it's not going to be beautiful, but it actually smells pretty good. And then I'm actually going to switch this over a little bit. Maybe we'll leave it there. And then it's just a matter of dredging in the batter until they look like so. You guys can see that. We should get some nice spotlight over here. Maybe we could get a flashlight from our sous chef over here. Nope, his phone is not available. Maybe it is. You got to come up with some things on the fly, just so we can see, get some light on that nice nuggie. Okay, so that's gonna go on the tray, and then you're gonna repeat that about 25 more times. So if anyone has any soy questions or overall questions or thoughts about nuggets, now is your chance.
I have questions all the time.
Okay, I love it. Bring it on.
One is, we'll put your recipe up here shortly.
Perfect.
So that people can see it and take pictures of it.
Love that.
What type of tofu did you say you're using this time?
This is actually fava bean tofu, and the company is called Big Mountain Foods, and it's really tasty. I like it. It's very neutral. It's got a little bit of a nutty flavor to it. But again, I like to sort of vary proteins because everything has a slightly different nutritional profile, right? So fava beans a little different from soybeans, a little different from other stuff. So I like to kind of rotate things through. Now it's at we have to get this at like a Mom's Organic Market, I think is where we get it. So we don't go there all the time. But when we do, we usually pick some up, and you can also special order most of these places if you decide, hey, I really like that, but I don't want to go to that store I don't always go to. Do a special order and get a whole bunch.
Right.
So excellent question.
Yeah. I have a soy sensitivity, so I am always looking for something other than soy.
Yes, understood. And that's a good point, right? So not everyone does tolerate soy well. I actually had some issues with soy for a while. Thankfully, they're mostly better now. But the fava bean tofu is actually a little as high or higher. It's about the same equivalence as the super firm high protein soy tofu. So, and it's very low in fat too, if that's a thing that you are watching out for, versus the pumfu, which has a lot. I don't know. Have you tried pumfu?
Yes, I love the flavor.
Okay.
It's pretty oily. It's pretty
a lot of fat. Yeah. Say for kids, that's not quite as much of an issue. For grown-ups,
I love that.
A little splurgier.
So question about the fava bean tofu.
Yes.
In some recipes that I see, especially if you're making like a plant-based cheese or something, or like a plant-based lasagna, the silken tofu is generally recommended for that. How does the fava bean tofu work in those kind of applications?
I wouldn't use it for that unless you're making like a ricotta. But if you're using like something that really needs like smooth, like a silken tofu for a dessert, I wouldn't, because it's really texture-wise equal to the super firm tofu.
Okay.
Like a super firm soy. So if something is calling for a soft or silken tofu, I wouldn't use it. Okay. So you've got the recipe up there right now. Just really quick, I'm going to have my husband, showrunner, bring back his phone. We are classy. We keep it classy here. To put some light on these lovely nuggies before they go into the oven for 15 minutes. Oh, wait, I almost forgot our secret weapon for these nuggets. I don't use a lot of oil when I cook, but this is a time you really need to use a little bit. Just a cooking spray, whatever you've got in the house is fine. It's going to help crisp up these nuggets without adding much oil or fat to this. Not that you really need to worry about fat so much with kids, but added oils, I'd rather kids are getting their fats from whole food fats like nuts and seeds and avocado. But just a little spray over this is going to give you the crispness that you need without the whole boiling it in oil that you would do for deep frying. Okay. So my lovely sous chef over there is going to be timing that at 15 minutes. We're going to flip, spray again, let it go for another 5 minutes, and then I'll show you at the end how beautifully these nuggets turn out. And now we are going to transition from lunch to dinner. He's so, again, so handy. Thank you, sir. All right. Last but not least, we are going to make everybody's winter favorite, except very, very budget friendly and quick and easy. And that is a chili. So let's move on to our dinner recipe. This is my quick and cheap chili from the blog Veggie Quest, my blog Veggie Quest. It's fast, it's easy, it's filling, it's good for batch cooking. And it's mostly vegetables, so you don't need to make a vegetable side, right? So it's one less thing to worry about. All right. Now I've learned my lesson with this little induction cooktop. You have to turn it on before you're going to get started with it. So we're going to go ahead and pop that on. Medium heat. And normally I would actually chop up the onion on camera. When I was chopping these for a practice run, these are the most potent onions I think I've ever chopped in my entire life. I was crying. So behold, while I am sauteing this onion, you are going to see the onion goggles. Get you a pair of these if you don't have them already. They are fantastic. They are a nice little goggle. On the flip side, squishy foam that holds to your face. If you wear glasses, I'm sorry, it might be worth taking off the glasses unless you're going to cut up your fingers without them and put these on. They will protect your eyes from those fumes. And if you have kids that want help and are old enough to be using knives or working at the stove somewhere, but you're teenagers, these can be nice if they have sensitive eyes. Okay, now for sauteing onions, you can use a little oil. I use cooking spray. You can also use water. But for convenience and that little bit of extra flavor, a cooking spray is quite handy. All right, so we're gonna brace ourselves. Yeah, I know, these are attractive, right? I'm sure if you had a pair of these. Okay. Oh boy, these are the strongest onions. All right, in they go. Thank goodness for the onion goggle, right, Meryl? You know
Right?
you want one. You know
I
you want one.
do. I want some.
They're
They could
so
double
great.
as like motorcycle riding goggles, I think.
Clearly.
I think so. We have a
I
question for
mean,
you.
safe. Oh yeah, go for it.
Um, is fortified soy milk the best milk alternative?
For kids, I'm going to go with yes. So that, and I say that because it's the only one that the USDA considers nutritionally equivalent to dairy milk, and without minus the saturated fat and all the hormones and the sketchy stuff and the lactose that gives people indigestion. So I think that's probably the best. And I think I still have it out here. The other one that is the closest to that is the Ripple Kids. It doesn't have any sort of USDA like, hey, this is the thing, but it's very similar to whole milk, so it's a little higher in fat. But again, minus the saturated fat, it has 1 gram of saturated fat versus 5 in cow's milk. And it has a little bit of DHA. They've added choline as well. So I think that's a good one, again, for kids. But if your kids, again, are getting the protein they need and the B12 they need from a supplement, and they're getting enough calories, right? If they need more calories, you're going to want to stick with a fortified soy milk or something like Ripple. But if not, you can switch into some of the other plant-based milks. But again, you want to make sure that they are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. And with vitamin D, your child might actually need a supplement. Most people at some point likely need a supplement. So again, that's something to check with your kiddo's doctor about. They may want to check their levels and make sure. So excellent question on the soy milk. Okay, so we have I should state while I'm doing this that I'm making a half recipe to keep the time going because this makes a big old 6 full bowls batch if you do a full recipe. So I'm going to be using, if you were doing a full recipe, you'd be using 2 medium onions. That's 2 cups of chopped onion. I am just using 1 in this. Okay, so this is going to go for 10 minutes. We've already been doing this for a little while. So I'm going to put 8 minutes on my watch to make sure that I am not going too far and just talking blah, 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 as I want to do. Okay, but I am going to talk about, I told you there's one more thing I was going to get on a soapbox about, and that is beans. I love beans almost as much as I love greens, maybe as much, not. Iodized salt is down here. Beans and greens are right at the top. I can see my husband is making kind of rolling his eyes over there. He's heard this before, but that's because they are so important. On a plant-based diet, we should be eating beans at most meals. That's probably going to be lunch and dinner in some form. Tofu counts as a form. And by beans, I'm not just, I get really into gesturing with this thing. By beans, I don't just mean like kidney beans or pinto beans, but I also mean split peas and lentils. They all have a very similar nutrition profile. So those are things we should be working in whenever we can. Again, that's because they are rich in protein, also fiber, folate, magnesium, potassium, and iron, which we're going to talk about in a second. If you are not, ooh, that's steamy and very oniony. If you clear out the sinuses, which is good, I'm on the tail end of a cold, liking this. Okay, right. If you don't eat a lot of beans yet, most adults can comfortably eat, who are uninitiated into beans, about half a cup before they can sometimes get digestion issues. If you are one of those people, just even more slowly, right? So maybe start with like 2 tablespoons a day and work your way up. A couple of the things you can do if you are sensitive to beans and they give you more gas than you would like, rinse them. Rinse them if you cook them at home, soak them overnight first before you cook them, pour out the soap water, and then cook them in fresh water. And then once they're done cooking, rinse them or rinse the canned juice out, because a lot of the gas producing soluble fibers, some of those fibers are in the liquid. So if you get rid of that, you get rid of some of it, and can help sort of lower the burden, so to speak. But again, the nutrition benefits outweigh the sort of side effects that can be there for some people. And if you ease into it, your gut flora will adjust and you'll be able to tolerate more. I do want to talk about iron with beans, because I get a lot of, I think I can safely take this off. And we're there. Okay. We do get a lot of, oh, vegetarians and vegans, like, do they get enough iron? So it's an interesting conundrum. People on plant-based diets tend to actually get more iron than people who eat animal products. And it's a better form of iron insofar as your body only absorbs it if you need it. So it's actually called non-heme iron, whereas the iron in animal foods is called heme iron. So you only absorb it if you need it, which is good. But the flip side of that, always a double-edged sword, is it's a little harder to absorb, right? So you're consuming more, you're absorbing less. How do you improve absorption if you need more? Anyone out in the Meryl? Do you know this? You might know this one. Thoughts on how to improve absorption of plant-based iron? How do you improve the absorption of plant-based iron?
Me.
Okay, yeah, Meryl. Go.
Eat the leafy green vegetables or plant-based iron with a vitamin C source.
Bingo.
Or tell me if this is correct now, Lee. Like if you're going to try something like kale or collards or mustard greens, which are a little bit stronger, you can add vinegar, and that will also help. Is that true?
I do not know on that, but what it will do is cut the bitterness, right? We were talking about the different ways to cut bitterness, and acid is a very effective way to do that. And it's one of the reasons you'll often get like a shaker of vinegar, or you'll have your beans cooked with vinegar. I don't know about the absorption. I am inclined to take your word for it. It sounds plausible.
It could be, right? Okay, I'll Google it.
For sure. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, get back to me with that one. Homework assignment while these onions are cooking, although we don't have much more time for that.
You know what? I have one other question.
Oh, yeah.
This is something that comes up periodically.
Let's hear it.
So, we have a contingent of people in the population who are very, very dedicated to eating keto and high meat carnivore type diet, right? Which is, yes, it's not where my heart is. I'm not interested in that personally. It doesn't work for me. But there are people who have that predilection. When we talk about beans, what they'll say is that it converts to sugar. It's too much carbs. What can you tell us about how much when we're talking about carbs, people get what can you tell us about beans as carbs and how it affects the body?
Beans are perhaps the very best source of carbs that you can get. Of course, this question comes right as these need to go a tiny bit longer, and they're sticking a tiny bit, so I'm going to add a little splash of water. So watch out, drama, and I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the bean question. So much magic over here. Okay. Beans do have carbohydrates. They have them in the best possible source, which is a slow releasing starch in the context of enormous amounts of things like resistant starch and other kinds of soluble and prebiotic fibers that are going to do a couple of things when it comes to blood sugar. One, they are just going to slow the absorption of the glucose from the beans. That fun fact, your brain's preferred fuel is glucose. Your muscles love to run on glucose. Glucose is the primary fuel for your body. You have to really do there's some metabolic shifts that have to happen to even get you to be able to run on ketones. That's your body's emergency backup system, right? So beans are a great slow release source of carbohydrates, right? Nice, gentle rise and fall. It's an excellent food for diabetes. Love it, love it, love it. And that's on the rise in kids too, is type 2 diabetes. So something to keep in mind, that beans are great in terms of risk reduction for that. They are also going to feed the good bacteria in your gut. Beans are filled with soluble prebiotic fiber, right? And that fiber feeds the good bacteria in your gut. And some of those bacteria can produce things like short chain fatty acids, which sounds bad, but are actually really good. They can actually help your body produce substances that can help lower blood sugar. So beans are actually the full package, and they have so many important nutritional benefits. They benefit the gut flora that you have going on there. They actually can help in terms of gut integrity, because one of the short chain fatty acids that the good bacteria in your gut make when you eat beans is called butyrate, and it actually feeds your colon cells. It's one of their preferred fuels. So you really want to be eating these foods that are rich in not only a slow release carbohydrate, like the kind found in beans, but also the soluble fiber that comes in beans and that does not come in meat and cheese and all these other sorts of things. Okay, I hope that's an answer to that question. Yes, eat beans. If you have diabetes, yay beans. If you want to not have diabetes, yay beans. Okay, we are going to, now I maybe got these slightly too far, but it was more important to answer the question. So we have these nice and golden and a little bit translucent, which is what we're going for. And I'm going to turn the heat down a smidge, because we're going to add the rest of these ingredients. And I want to make sure I'm not going too late on time. Okay, we're going to make it just under the wire. We're not going to simmer this for the amount of time it should go for, but that's okay. Now, I'm going to be adding half amounts of the ingredients that you're going to add. So it sort of pains my soul, but we got to keep the clock moving. So I'm going to add half a can of tomatoes. I know, it's super weird. You're going to add the whole can at home. And we're going to add half a can of tomato paste. Fun fact, if you have kids at home, maybe you could look into one of these can openers that opens the can along the glue line instead of slicing metal, so that you end up with a no-cut edge on your lid. So Wild didn't know this was a thing. Maybe everyone else knew, but it's not sharp. It's just where the glue is, where the glue attaches the lid. So we're going to put in a half of a can of tomato paste. Again, if you are doing the full recipe, you'll put in the full can. And you would normally use 2 cans of beans. I'm going to use 1. Now, again, if gas is an issue for you, you're going to rinse these beans before you put them in. In the recipe, I have 1 can rinsed and 1 can non-rinsed, because you get the extra flavor and texture of the liquid that comes in the beans. I'm going to split the difference with this and drain half the can liquid, half the liquid, give or take, using this handy dandy little strainer I have. And the beans go in. And then you'll use 3 tablespoons of chili powder. I'm using the half of that. You'll use, I believe it's a half teaspoon, or a full teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm using half. You can use fresh garlic if you want, but if you do, you want to put that in at the end with the onions. We are going to use a tablespoon of brown sugar, whatever sugar you like. Now, I know I might get some guff on this, but this is a very small amount of sugar, and it adds a lot of depth and flavor to this chili. And I think it's more of getting these tomatoes back to their natural sweetness level, as opposed to really like making something overly sweet. So we're going to do this tablespoon of brown sugar. This is to make it like the tomatoes you'd grow in your backyard, except no one's got time for that right now, and it's the wrong season. Okay, and that's a lie. We grow tomatoes. We love it. Oh, hey, thought that was a little too thick. And I'm using 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of water. You're going to use 2 1/4 cups of water for yours. And we're going to put this on sort of low or medium low, whatever gets it to a simmer. And in your world, you're going to let that simmer, stirring it every few minutes for 10 or 15 minutes until it gets to the thickness that you like. Since we are coming down to the wire on this, we are going to pretend we're going to let it go for like a minute and get a little bit warmer. And then we're going to put in our secret ingredient, which is creamy peanut butter. Which, like, what's peanut butter doing in my chili? It's going to, a couple of things. From a nutritional standpoint, again, we're going to add just a little bit of a whole food fat. It's going to help us absorb the lycopene, actually, which is a health promoting phytonutrient that's in all these lovely cooked tomato products. Really good for your skin, for the men. It's actually good for prostate health. So we're going to help absorb that a little bit. It's also going to add some just depth of flavor. You will not taste peanuts. If you have a peanut allergy, obviously you're going to omit this or use something like an almond butter. But if you tolerate peanuts, this is a really nice way to just add a little boost. And again, so inexpensive. I do want to say, when I first developed this recipe, this was back in 2017. So I know times have changed, inflation, but I actually had this down to just over 50 cents per bowl using this recipe. So it's a nice way to kind of put a little more cash back in your wallet. Okay, but enough of that. This is almost warm enough. And again, you're going to simmer this for 10 to 15 minutes with the lid off until it gets to the thickness level that you like it. But we're going to pretend that that just happened. And luckily, Jeff had got us covered on the nuggets. So he did a little spray and flipped them over. And then they're going to go for 5 more minutes. But then you're going to turn the heat off before you enter your peanut butter. Before you put your peanut butter into your chili, you're going to turn the heat off. And you're going to scrape it in there. Because if you put it in while the heat is still on, you can scorch. It can get so thick that it can scorch on the bottom, and you don't want to do that. So you're going to want to stir your peanut butter in to the nice warm chili. We're not quite as warm as I would like it to be, but behold, the magic of television, internet. We're just going to pretend that it is exactly where we want it. Okay, and then this is the fun part. Okay, you guys. This is the part that your kids are going to like. Because, I mean, okay, chili, that's fine, right? But what you do is not just chili, you do a chili bar. So people can put what they want on there and make it their own. And they've got this awesome base that, and again, I have people, oh, when I put like a plant-based crumble in there, sure. If you want to, their Gardein has a pretty decent one, Beyond Meat. Their crumbles are actually pretty healthy. Like, they're a little salty, understood. But if you wanted to sort of like amp this up more than it already is, you can, but it tastes amazing all by itself. And it had a nice, oh, he's got everything. He's thought of everything. Okay, we are going to sort of plate this up. Hopefully I got the peanut butter in here. All right. All right, so we're going to do, again, this should only make 3 bowls of chili. This is not even a third of what is in here. So again, this makes a good amount of chili, and pretend that that's not there. And then this is the fun part. So our avocado got a little bit, that's okay. It's avocado. It's going to turn a little bit brown. So we're going to put a little bit of avocado on there because that's my jam. I like some avocado on things. Cilantro, I know you either love it or you hate it. I love it. So what's going on there? Apologies to you folks who are very sensitive to cilantro and don't love it. We've got some green onions that are going to go on there. Now, don't judge me, and you do not have to include this. It's a little splurgy, but just a little bit of vegan cheese. I know it's not healthy, but it tastes so yummy. And again, if it's a little bit of unhealthy to get your kids eating something super healthy, I'm going to bless that for what it's worth. And my pièce de résistance, you can either put this over brown rice, but I really dig some sticky brown rice. And it's so cute and like a little scoop right on the top. I just love it. So anyways, we've got our beautiful chili. Hopefully we can see that. There we go. And you have a kid-friendly meal that hopefully the whole family will like. So I think our nuggets are not quite gonna, how much longer do they have? It's 1.5 minutes. So if there's any questions, because I want to show you, these nuggets come out looking super gorgeous. So if we have any questions, or I can carry on about beans, because I didn't even get to all the health benefits of beans. But I want to get these nuggets out because I'm going to take one right up to the camera because they are super yummy.
Yeah, no, this looks great.
I didn't have time to go over it, but we make an awesome, it's actually one of the top recipes on my blog. It is a copycat Hidden Valley Ranch dressing, which I know is not like a culinary, it's not fancy, but it tastes really good. So we made one in this very leak-proof, which is also a leak-proof lid. Okay. Got it. And it is literally just, you put a bunch of ingredients. It's a cashew base. So if you're sensitive to soy, this is not going to be an issue for you. You just pop it right in the blender. It comes out beautiful for dipping nuggets. It's also actually a really nice drizzle on the chili. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that over there too. I mean, come on. If you haven't already eaten dinner, you got to be hungry now. And then I think maybe we can just take those nuggets on out. What do you think? All right. So the nuggets are coming out right now. And behold, they are beautiful. I'm not going to set them down quite yet. I don't want to crack our countertops, but they come out just looking so lovely and yummy. Can we get a little light over here? Behold, the steamy and delicious nugget. They are so good. Dipped in the ranch dressing or whatever dip you like, because honestly, let's be clear, like the whole point of nuggets is some dipping sauce. So there you have it. Recipes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that your kiddos will enjoy.
Fabulous. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. That chili looks amazing. Love the drizzle over the top. Beautiful
So good.
plating.
So
Gorgeous.
good.
Yeah, I never would have thought to put peanut butter in chili.
It's a surprising little touch. I've made a stew that is a sweet potato and peanut stew with a tomato base, and that was kind of what gave me the idea to be like, hey, this is an inexpensive and healthy way to kind of boost this.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, really good. Let's see. We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Back to the soy milk question. Oh, well, we'll go with this one since it's on the screen. What would be the best dipping sauce for tofu nuggets?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm going to go with the ranch dipping sauce. And I don't know, this is so tasty. It's really, really good. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah,
so yummy.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, there's always the traditional ketchup and barbecue sauce. You can really do whatever you would do for a regular nugget. If there's a healthier version of that you want to make, that's good too. But yeah, I mean, my personal favorite is the ranch, but barbecue is nice too, especially if you get a sweeter barbecue sauce. It's really nice.
Yeah. I really enjoy using like a thinned hummus or a tahini and lemon and garlic kind of sauce.
Yes.
That's like, I can make that without thinking. That's probably why I use it so often.
Yeah, a thin hummus, I tell you, that's a great salad dressing. Well, you already know that. I mean, that's one of those just sort of go-to, easy.
Yeah,
I don't want to put things in the blender. I don't have time for that.
That's
bet.
right.
You bet. Yeah,
for sure. We have one other question. How long does fortified soy milk last in the fridge?
Oh, golly. That is an excellent question. I don't know. It doesn't last that long around here. My website, there's a really good go-to website for all of these things. It's called stilltasty.com. Stilltasty.com. And it will tell you, verified scientifically, I don't remember exactly the group that puts it together, but how long it is safe to eat things after they've been opened in your fridge or unopened. So a really great site for reducing food waste, to be like, can I eat this? And another tip, I don't know if you do this at home, but we definitely do. When you open a container, Sharpie right on it when you opened it. It is super helpful, because you think you're going to remember. I mean, in our house, I'm like, oh, I'll remember when I cut that up. I won't. So
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
And that website was Still Tasty, like still crazy after all these years.
Still crazy after all these years, but still tasty after all these days? Question mark.
Right.
Yeah, still tasty.
Still
tasty. I think it's .com. It could be .org.
Okay.
Tell me, Meryl.
I'm looking. I
say it's been a minute since I've been there. I'll be honest, but
let me look.
Unless they've taken it down, it is my resource.
Still.com.
My husband says it's .com. Stilltasty.com.
.com. Yes, stilltasty.com.
Excellent. It's still working.
Yes, still here.
Okay, good.
Still chugging along.
I'd be bummed if it was gone.
Yeah. Great. Does anybody else in the audience have any questions for Lee?
I'm just going to see if they have anything on here that says how long it's 7 days after opening. Or you could just look on the package. But stilltasty.com is great.
Yeah. And of course, you go by the expiration dates, right?
Of
There's
course,
always
yes.
that, right?
Right. Which again, the expiration dates on soy milk, I love this is February of 2025. So, as long as it's not open, you can
Right.
keep it for a long
You're
time.
good. You're good.
Better to keep
You
it
know what?
in the fridge than the door, though. Even though I don't, but it'll keep for longer in the fridge because it's colder in the main body of the fridge than in the door. Fun fact.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Good, good, good. Wonderful.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, yeah. In my refrigerator, it goes wherever it fits.
That's kind of where it is in my fridge, which is usually the door. Oh, well.
Right? So
Yeah.
often. All right. Here's another one. Are beans the number one food we should add to our diet?
Oh,
Mhm.
if you're not already eating them, they're right up there with dark leafy greens. If I have to, those two are tied for first in my book. Ah, again, we're the only competition here is dark leafy greens.
Mhm.
If you're eating a plant-based diet, though, yeah, I think beans need to be in your diet in some form or another. They really, you can't have a complete plant-based diet without getting them in somehow, even if
Yes.
it's in like the form of a tofu. They got to be in there. Yeah.
Yeah. One of our guests earlier today was Deepa Deshmukh. She's a registered dietitian also and
Hmm.
recipe creator, amazing, originally from India. And she's done extensive travel and looking around, I'm sure as you have too, at other diets from other cultures, right?
Yes,
Eating patterns of other cultures. And what she was saying this morning was that beans and grains are a part of every culture's
they are.
dietary pattern.
They really are, and they're
The United
inexpensive and
States,
they're
of course.
incredibly nutritious. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
The United States is sorely lacking in both beans and whole grains. And just yesterday, I think I saw a report that the UK, whereas the United States we're at about 67% or so, it might be more by now, of our calories coming from ultra processed foods and refined grains and all of this stuff that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
The
No.
UK is now almost up to 50% of their diet being the same stuff. Other
Wow.
countries far
They're
less.
coming for us.
They are, right? They're gaining.
That's not an award you want to win.
That's for sure.
No.
That's for sure.
No. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah, the fiber deficiency is a thing we need to talk about more in America, but you will not be on a plant-based diet. Even if you only do plant predominant, you're gonna be okay on the fiber.
Okay,
Unless you're
one
eating
more.
a bunch of processed junky stuff, but we're
Yeah,
talking whole plant foods here.
that's
Yeah.
right. Not plant-based junk, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, one fun fact, and then we'll bounce over to the Zoom room because I know people
Oh,
love these fun facts. So there
fun
was
facts.
a study that came out last summer, I want to say maybe a
Oh,
year
you've got
ago.
the fun fact. Oh, good. I thought I had the fun. I was like, oh, I don't have
Yeah,
any.
yeah, no, this is a fun fact.
Okay.
Um,
Here, let's hear it.
I spend way too much time looking at trivia, plant-based trivia. So, fun
Love it.
fact, there was a archaeological study that was done looking at, of all things, Paleolithic excrement,
I
poop.
am already interested.
I know. Who has fun facts like this, right?
I
Okay,
love this, Meryl. We need to chat after this. Okay.
we do. We should
Yeah.
get together and have lunch at the very
Yes.
least. Um, anyway, so they're looking at poop of our Paleolithic ancestors, like
Yes.
10,000 years ago or so, right?
Okay.
And what they found was that whereas our current society, Americans, eat maybe something like 12 grams on average of fiber a day. Yes. Our Paleolithic ancestors were eating like 100 to 200 plus grams of fiber per day. Do you know
Yes.
that means they didn't have
Sing
much
it.
room in their bellies for anything else? Because
Oh,
that's a
no.
lot. And the
Yeah.
fiber fills us up so much, right?
Yes.
So things
Absolutely.
like meats and fish and whatever else, maybe they were eating bugs. I don't know what else they were eating.
I say insects were a thing that people only talk about. Like, oh, were they eating chicken? No, they're eating insects.
Insects a lot.
Is
And
was part of it. Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
cultures in the world that still eat a
Absolutely.
lot of
Yes.
insects, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, but there was not that much room left in a person's belly if they had
No.
200 grams of fiber in a day. Imagine eating that much salad, right? That would fill you up for quite a
Yeah.
while.
And
Yeah.
it means our brains are wired for it. And that's what people miss. When you aren't getting enough fiber, your brain is just not getting the signals it needs to be like, I've eaten enough food because it doesn't know. It's like, well, I guess we need to eat more.
Right. And
So
the fiber also contributes to that gut brain communication, right? With the
yes,
microbiome in the brain.
yes,
So many reasons. So many
so many
reasons,
reasons.
right? You do not need
Yep.
to eat crickets.
No, you
You
don't
could
need to.
have
No.
green leafy vegetables instead.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
just saying.
Yes. I think I'll go with the green leafies.
I will, most definitely.
Yes.
That's a whole nother story. All right. We will bounce over to the Zoom room, talk for maybe like 20 minutes, and then we will let you settle down for the evening and
Okay.
all of that good stuff. Thank you
Got
all
it.
so much for watching Lee's amazing demonstration. Thank you. 3 recipes. I hope you were able to see them all. Actually, what we'll do, Veland, if you have all 3 recipes still there, maybe we'll just put them up. Especially the last one, I think wasn't up for very long. Hopefully, I don't know if people were able to take pictures of it, but if you could put up the last recipe. Here she is. On the
So
money, on the
now
money.
you. Oh, that's the there. You also plug. You can find that at veggie-quest.com.
Beautiful. Yes. All of these are available on your website then?
All of them except for the tofu nuggets. That's from the Hey Nutrition Lady website, which I believe is heynutritionlady.com.
Okay. Well,
I
okay.
can't claim the tofu nuggets.
Okay, but
They are not my brainchild.
we do have
Yes,
that in this
yes,
form, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. So audience, please take pictures of this. Scroll back up to the top just real quick, Belin. I know you showed the top of this recipe already, but if you could scroll back up, great, just so people see whatever it is. And down a little bit, maybe halfway down. I want to see. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Stop.
just to get the ingredients.
Stop right
This
there.
one? Yep,
Yeah.
right here. Yep.
Yes.
This just
That
goes in a blender and you turn it on. Or if you
you
don't have a high power blender, you soak those cashews overnight in the liquid and then it goes in the blender and you turn it
Yep. Yep. Most definitely. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And the tofu nuggies.
on. Also known
Tofu
as nuggets.
nuggies. And then we will bounce over to the Zoom room and wrap it up. All right, tofu nuggies. Okay, take
So
pictures of
tasty.
this. Yes. I really want to try that. I'm gonna have to look for fava bean.
Say Big Mountain Foods, they've got a store locator thing. Again,
Okay.
it's not in my regular grocery stores. I have to go to a separate one, but actually, I mentioned hey, you can special order it. That's what I do. I special order like a case of 8 because they
Okay.
last a really long time. And
Okay.
just stick them in the back of the fridge. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Love it. Great. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for being here for this great. I really appreciate this one. Lee, this was great. I'm
Well,
gonna
good.
make
Thanks,
some
Meryl. Yeah, this was a blast.
tofu nuggies and I'm gonna try putting peanut butter and chili.
Heck yeah. You're
Right?
going to love it.
That's
You're going to love it.
mind blowing. All right. Tomorrow, just so that we know, we'll be picking it up again at 10 o'clock Central Time, right here. Our subject for tomorrow is food and the environment. We have a young lady, Ava Stubbe. She is 15 years old, I believe. She's going to talk about how she is a young climate change activist. We have Dr. Sailesh Rao, who will talk to us about the pinky promise he made with his granddaughter to help stop global climate change. And then the evening cooking demo will be with Dilip Barman and his daughter Anu, who are just my dear, dear, beloved
They are
friends.
great.
Oh my gosh, I love those people. I'm thrilled with everybody who is who's been involved in this event. It's just been such a joy to work with everybody. So with that, you guys have a good night. If you got the VIP access, we'll see you over in the Zoom room. Okay. Thanks. Good night.
So, good night.